Well, it's an interesting question because the Passion was as much a response to Port Talbot as it was to the Passion. But I think there were a few things. I mean, firstly, because the story is so well known, that's a great gift as a storyteller, because you know that if you do a scene called The Supper, everyone knows the broad beats of the Last Supper. All right, you know, some bread is broken, there's a betrayal, you know, this Jesus figure speaks to his followers. And so we had those beats that I was confident people knew, even if they arrived on the third day. But because there are so many sort of gaps and questions in the original material, you can sort of write into those gaps, and you can find contemporary and psychological motivations that are very relevant to the town, to Port Talbot. So we were drawing upon the history of the town having been occupied by heavy industry, if you like, and feeling like a loss of community in the face of these big multinationals. But the last thing I'd like to say about that, which I think is really interesting, is that we say, you know, it's one of the best stories ever known, but as I said last night, what's fascinating is I don't think people really do know it. We know the broad brushstrokes. You go back and read the Gospels, and I'd say the vast majority of people do not know the real meat and the real sort of intimacy of the Gospels. And what's interesting about them, even if you're reading them as purely sort of literary text, is how surprising and challenging they are. I mean, Jesus says some really challenging stuff about saying, you know, if you're going to follow him, then he says, you know, I've come here to divide, you know, mother from daughter, father from son. Sort of saying, you know, essentially sod families, it's all about me now. So the other thing I was able to do is to find those quite controversial pieces and to drill into the human quality of what that would mean. So one of the most important ongoing stories through the Passion is our Jesus figure's mother, because the teacher doesn't know who she is, and he sort of rejects her. And I was just fascinated by what is it like to be worried for your son, but to have him reject